The charge appeared at 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday between a gas station fill-up and a dinner I hadn't been invited to. I was sitting at the kitchen table in Delwood with the bank app open because I couldn't sleep and I'd been meaning to check whether the water bill had cleared. It had. And below it, sitting flat and factual as any other line item, was a charge to the Crestline Suites in Columbus. $318 for 2 nights. Dennis had told me he was at a regional sales conference. He'd said it the way he said most things, easily while looking past my shoulder at something more interesting. I set the phone face down on the table. I stood up and filled a glass of water at the sink. I set the glass on the counter and didn't drink it. The refrigerator hummed. The hallway light was still on from when Marcus had gone to bed an hour earlier. I walked to the end of the hall and turned it off. I walked back. I picked up the phone, turned it face up, looked at the charge one more time, and then put it in my pocket. I sat back down. My winter coat was hanging on the hook by the back door, the way it always was. I noticed it the way you notice something you've seen every day for years, without thinking about it at all. The water sat on the counter untouched for the rest of the night. There was no dramatic realization. No moment where the room tilted. Something just settled into place, the way a drawer will finally close when you've been forcing it for years and then one day you stop forcing it and it slides shut on its own, quiet and level, and you understand the problem was never the drawer. My name is Renata. I was 41 years old, and I had been married to Dennis Carver for 14 years. I worked as a senior office administrator for a civil engineering firm on the west side of Delwood, a job I'd held for 9 years, a job that paid steadily and asked me to be reliable, detail-oriented, and invisible in the way that competent people in support roles are always invisible. I was good at it. I didn't mind the invisibility at work. At work I understood the terms. Marcus was 13. He had his father's height and my habit of going quiet when he was working something out. He played bass guitar badly and chess well, and he left his shoes exactly 1 step inside the front door every single day, no matter how many times I asked him to move them further in. I had stopped asking. Dennis was a regional sales manager for a medical supply distributor. He traveled Tuesday through Thursday most weeks, sometimes longer, always with an explanation that was just detailed enough to sound complete. He was the kind of man who could make a room feel warmer when he entered it, which is not the same thing as being a warm man. I had confused those two things for a long time. He was 44. He had been charming when I met him and he was still charming, just not often in my direction. The name Carla had appeared on his phone screen 2 years earlier on a Saturday morning while he was in the shower. A text that read last night was, and then the screen timed out. He came out of the bathroom and saw me looking at the phone, and he explained that Carla was a client in the Dayton territory, that she had a habit of texting early, that she was going through a difficult divorce, and sometimes sent unprofessional messages that he handled carefully to preserve the account relationship. He said it calmly. He said it with a slightly tired expression, the expression of a man who deals with difficult things professionally so his family doesn't have to. I believed him. I believed him because I wanted to, and because the explanation was detailed, and because I had Marcus and a mortgage and a life that fit together the way lives do when you've been building them for a long time. I thought about Carla at 11:47 p.m. on that Thursday, sitting at the kitchen table, the phone face down, the water untouched. What I had put into our life together was not something I could hand you a spreadsheet for. It didn't work that way, and anyone who'd ever kept a household moving knew it didn't work that way. The accounting was invisible precisely because it was always done. I handled the bills. Not the glamorous financial decisions, not the investment accounts Dennis managed himself and discussed in a tone that made me feel I'd be confused by the details. The actual bills. The mortgage autopay, the property tax installment dates, the insurance renewals, the utilities that blink off if you miss a cycle, the annual HOA fee that nobody remembers until it's past due. I kept those moving the way a motor keeps a machine running. Not because anyone was watching, but because the alternative was everything stopping. I coordinated Marcus's school schedule, his medical appointments, the orthodontist in Westerville he'd been seeing since he was 10. I handled everything that required a phone call during business hours, which is most of what keeping a life in order actually requires. Our house on Harkin Street had needed 2 significant repairs in the years we'd owned it. A furnace replacement and a full roof job after a storm took 3 sections of shingles the winter before last. Both times I was the one who got the estimates, compared contractors, scheduled the work, and managed the process from first call to final invoice while Dennis was on the road. Both times he came home and said the house looked good. I kept the household medical records organized. I kept the car service records. I kept a folder in the filing cabinet labeled house that contained every document related to the property since the day we closed. The deed, the inspection report, the warranty transfers, the permit for the deck we'd added in year 3. Dennis knew the folder existed because I'd told him it existed. He had never opened it. He worked hard, I will say that. He drove long distances and managed difficult clients and came home tired. What he did not do was register that the house he came home tired to was functional because of work that had also been done. The kind of work that doesn't get tired because it doesn't get acknowledged enough to have a shape. It just gets done, and then the next thing gets done, and the house stays running, and no one says anything because that's what's supposed to happen. I had run his life alongside my own and Marcus's for 14 years, and in 14 years Dennis had called me ungrateful twice. Once when I asked him to take a turn booking our vacation, and once when I mentioned mildly that it might be useful if he knew where Marcus's pediatrician was located. I filed both of those away. I didn't know why I was filing them. I filed them anyway. He came home Sunday evening. He had a good trip, he said. The conference had gone well. There was a dinner he hadn't mentioned, but it turned out to be useful for a contact in the Toledo region. I waited until Marcus was in his room with his headphones on. I saw the charge, I said. He set his bag down near the door. He didn't look at me when he said, "What charge?" "Crestline Suites," I said. 2 nights. That was part of the conference. The conference was at the Marriott on Broad Street, I said. I looked it up. He turned around then. His face did the thing it did when a client was being difficult. A particular stillness, patient and mildly disappointed, as though the person across from him had said something naive. "I don't know why you're looking things up," he said. "I don't know why you're staying at a hotel that isn't the conference hotel," I said. He picked up his bag again. He unzipped the front pocket, took out his phone charger, set it on the table. A deliberate series of small actions. "Renata," he said in the voice, "you're building something out of nothing." "Then tell me what it is." "It's a hotel charge." "With who?" A pause. The refrigerator hummed. "I was with a colleague," he said. "Carla." He looked at me then. "You don't know what you're talking about," he said. "You keep saying things like that," I replied. "It doesn't make me wrong. She's a work contact. I've told you that. You've told me a lot of things." He set his phone charger down and straightened up and looked at me with the expression I had learned over 14 years meant the conversation was about to change direction, away from what I'd asked and towards something I'd done wrong. "You know what your problem is?" he said. I waited. "You take everything and you make it about distrust. I work myself to the bone for this family, and this is what I come home to." "I asked about a hotel charge," I said. "You accused me," he said. "That's not a question, that's an accusation. And honestly." He picked up the charger. He turned toward the hallway. "I'm tired of being the only one who puts any real effort into this marriage. You're ungrateful, Renata. You always have been." Something went still in my chest, not rage, not even clarity yet, just a low, even pressure, the kind that comes before a decision finishes making itself. He walked down the hallway. I sat at the kitchen table. The chair across from me was empty. His coffee mug from the morning was still on the counter where he'd left it. I looked at the mug for a while. I looked at the window. The street outside was orange from the lamppost on the corner of Harkin. I didn't say anything else that night. I didn't need to. Monday morning I drove Marcus to school. I came home and made coffee. I opened the house folder in the filing cabinet. I took out the deed. I drove to the copy shop on Renner Avenue and had them laminate 1 copy of the first page. I drove home. I put the laminated copy in the inside pocket of my winter coat, the one with the zip closure. I pressed it flat against the lining and zipped it closed. Tuesday morning I called our bank at 9:03 a.m. I transferred $14,230 from the joint checking account into a sole account in my name, which I had opened the previous October, a fact Dennis did not know. I called the card services line. The representative asked me to confirm the last 4 digits of the card number and the billing address. I gave both without looking anything up. She asked if there was a reason for the cancellation. I told her I was closing the supplementary account. She said the card would be deactivated immediately. I thanked her and ended the call. I canceled the supplementary card. I opened my laptop and found the number for a realtor I'd used when we first bought the house on Harkin Street. I left a message. Dennis called at 6:48 p.m. Tuesday. I answered. My card was declined, he said. I know, I replied. A pause. What did you do? I canceled it. Renata. His voice had the quality of a man explaining something to someone who should already understand it. That card is for business expenses. Do you understand what you've just done? Yes, I said. I had clients at dinner. Do you have any idea how that looks? I can imagine. You need to fix this, he said. Tonight. Call them and fix it. I'm not going to do that, I said. Excuse me. You heard me, Dennis. You are sabotaging my career, he said, and his voice shifted, the patience gone, something thinner underneath it. This is sabotage. Do you understand that? You've always resented what I do. You've always tried to make it smaller than it is. I haven't done anything to your career, I replied. The card was in my name, I said. Supplementary card. My name. My account. I had every right to cancel it. Silence. What is this? He said finally. It wasn't a question. This is me telling you I know, I said. And I think you know what I mean. He hung up. He called back 4 minutes later. We need to talk in person, he said. We can talk through attorneys, I replied, and I ended the call. The next morning, Sandra Pryor from Pryor Realty called me back. We met at the house on Harkin Street on Wednesday afternoon. I put on my winter coat before I left, the same one I'd had since November, the one hanging by the back door. I sat across from her at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee. She asked for the ownership documentation. I reached into the inside pocket of the coat. I took out the laminated copy of the deed's first page. I set it face up on the table between us, flat, the Faro County recording stamp visible in the upper corner. She looked at it. She looked at me. The house is listed in both names, she said. It is, I said. You'll need his signature or a court order to list without him. I know, I said. I've already spoken with an attorney. We're filing Thursday. She nodded. She was a practical woman. She picked up her pen. Before she wrote anything down, I said, He told me last week I was ungrateful. He's said it before. She looked up. 14 years of keeping everything running, I said, and the word he reaches for is ungrateful. I wasn't asking her to agree with me. I wasn't making a speech. I was just putting it somewhere outside of myself, where it could exist as a fact rather than a weight. The house, I said, is worth whatever the market says it's worth. I'd like to list it as soon as the paperwork clears. Her notes said $687,400 for the comparative market analysis. She showed me the comps. I looked at them. I said that seemed right. I drove home and asked Marcus if he'd be open to moving. He was sitting on the couch with his bass guitar in his lap, not playing it, just holding the neck the way he did when he was thinking. Where? He asked. I don't know yet, I said. Somewhere in the county. Maybe Faro. He nodded slowly. Would you be okay? I asked. He looked at me. He said, Yeah, Mom. Let's do it. I stood in the doorway of the living room for a moment. Dennis had said I was ungrateful. What he meant was that I hadn't been grateful enough to him. That everything I did because of him, and that questioning him was a form of taking without giving. That was the math he was running. The math I was running was different. It was 14 years of work that kept a house standing and a child fed and an adult man's life functional while he drove to Columbus and charged hotel rooms on a card in my name. Those are not the same thing. I went to the kitchen and started dinner. 4 months after I filed, Dennis signed the sale agreement under terms negotiated by 2 attorneys and a mediator who charged $340 an hour and was worth every dollar of it. The house on Harkin Street sold in 19 days. Marcus and I rented a 2-bedroom on Clearfield Road in Faro County while we decided what came next. It was smaller. It had a good school district and a hardware store 3 blocks away, which mattered to me for reasons I couldn't have explained quickly, but that had to do with wanting to be in a place where things could be fixed. I bought a file box from that hardware store, dark green metal clasp stackable. I built it myself from the flat pack with a Phillips head screwdriver on the floor of our new kitchen. The laminated deed copy went in first, in a labeled manila folder, along with the sale documentation and the attorney's final letter and every piece of paper that mattered. I kept the box on the shelf above my desk. In October, Dennis sent a text message asking whether I intended to share the proceeds beyond the court-ordered split, because he felt the division hadn't accounted for his contributions fairly. I read the message. I put the phone down. I didn't reply. Marcus started at his new school that same week and came home the second Friday talking faster than he had in months, something about a chess club and a kid named Oren who played at a level Marcus described as genuinely irritating, which I understood to be high praise. He left his shoes 1 step inside the front door. I didn't ask him to move them further in. The things that were real about your life before don't disappear because someone decided they were invisible. They're still there, in the file box, in the deed, in the child who answers yes when you ask if he'll be okay. That's the part they can't take. They can leave, they can lie, they can call you ungrateful while standing in a house you kept running for 14 years, but the record exists, and it exists in things that last longer than their version of events. If this story landed for you, share it with someone who's been told the same thing. I still carry the winter coat. Not because I need the deed copy anymore, it's in the file box, properly stored, properly labeled. I carry it because of the weight of it. The specific, familiar weight of a coat that knows where everything is.